Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk About Meh, the place where I talk about anything and everything I want to, or whatever interests me at this moment, and where I continue my midlife crisis. So, today I wanted to talk about something I haven't discussed yet, which was a couple of video games. I'm a avid gamer, I have been for a long time, and I had it all set up to discuss two games that I've been playing. One good and one not so good. And yeah, yesterday I got a surprise delivery, one that I wasn't expecting but had been waiting for quite some time. And it was a Blu-ray. So I needed to drop everything and watch the Blu-ray last night, and now I need to talk about it. And that is 2024's The Crow, starring Mr. Skarsgård. So yeah, if you checked out my previous video, I love The Crow. The original, the graphic novel in particular, I grew up with the movie. The movie holds a very, very special place in my heart, and it's something it's near and dear to me, and it always has been. Now, let's discuss the 2024 version. Going to need a sip here. I apologize for this camera flickering constantly. It's got an autofocus on it, and it's really bad. Really bad. So much so that I am already looking at getting a new camera. It's a brilliant little thing. It's called an Osbot Tiny 2. It's brilliant, but I cannot get that autofocus to behave. I would much rather something that I can control. It's a smart wee thing too. It's got AI tracking and everything on it, but I don't need it and I don't use it. Which is a shame, but it's just that autofocus. No matter what I do, it flickers. No matter what lighting I give it, no matter what positioning, it's a pain. But anyway, I digress. Before I go into this, I think it's really important to just state up front, separate the original from this one. And I know that's difficult, and I know a lot of people don't want to, but separate the two. They are, it's not a remake, and it sure as hell isn't a reboot. I know that the fandom of The Crow, and like, look, I am a massive fan myself, but I feel that I am very, very open to different versions of things. I actually really enjoy when something's taken and remixed and changed into something different. Different isn't necessarily bad, necessarily. And I do feel that obviously because of Brandon Lee's death, there is this like, oh, you shouldn't touch it. You should leave it as is. Well, there has been more comics since Brandon Lee's death, which I can't get my hands on. But there has been more. There was 3 sequels to the original Crow. It has continued. This is not a new thing. This isn't just randomly out of nowhere. So, as much as I understand people get mad and always love the original and think it shouldn't be touched, the original is still there. Brandon Lee's legacy is still intact. That body of work will always be there and will never change. The amount of hate surrounding this movie, even before it came out, was quite vitriolic. It was quite poisonous and venomous. And I can understand people's passion and I can understand why it would go that way, but I do think it is somewhat unwarranted. I don't think it was fair because it was heavily judged before it even got a chance to find its feet. So separate the two. This doesn't affect the original in any way. In fact, I look at it another way where people that haven't seen the original might watch this and go, start talking about it. And someone might go, well, do you know there was an original or a 1994 one? Really? And they'll go watch that, which is a good thing. Gets more eyes on The Crow. I hate using the word intellectual property, but that's what it is. But it gets eyes on The Crow in general. They might even, go read the graphic novel, which I thoroughly suggest everyone does. If you can get your hands on the graphic novel, go read that. Um, so yeah, separate the two. Um, I'm going to give a lot of spoilers, so be warned. I'll give you a small plot summary. So the film centers somewhat more on Shelley. Shelley is in trouble. She's involved with stuff. She's seen something that she shouldn't see. Um, she's a bit of a she's a drug addict, party drug addict. It's very, what's the term? See, I'm an old man now. I shouldn't be using terms like this, but Gen Z, I think, is the term. It's very modern, youth of today kind of thing. Oh man, youth of today. Oh, I did not just say that. But yeah, so she's seen something she shouldn't see. Her and her friends are in trouble. She goes on the run. She ends up in a rehab facility. She meets Eric in the rehab facility. They have a whirlwind romance and a connection. They both escape, and very, very rushed through the movie. They have I don't even know, is it supposed to be months? Is it supposed to be weeks? Is it even days? It's a bit hard to grasp that, but basically have a whirlwind, passionate romance. And because they're both young, and I think the idea is because they're in the lifestyle of drugs and whatnot, it's very uh, burn out before you fade away. Live fast, die young attitude. So I think it's pushing the romance bit really hard. So yeah, they're together. The things that she saw catch up with her. Eric and her are killed. Eric's allowed to come back from the dead to avenge them. And yeah, he goes and kills the baddies. And it's as simple as that. It's not really much more complicated than that. There are differences in this movie. Well, it's right. So when I say differences in this movie from the original, it's so far removed from the original that I think that's a good thing. It's so far from it that it is genuinely its own thing. And I was going to leave my criticisms until the end, but I can't continue without stating that one of my biggest criticisms of this movie is the two characters did not need to be named Eric and Shelley. They could have been named anything else. It did not need that connection at all because it's got nothing to do with the book and it's got nothing to do with the original film. It could have been a new Crow movie with no connection to the original. And I think it probably would have stood a bit more, not stood, but it would have been accepted a bit more from the fans, I think, that are diehards of the original. So I'm going to just race through things that I like about this because I don't want to go too much into the plot summary because not a lot really happens in this movie in the sense of grand scheme of things. There are changes in this movie that I like. It leans a hell of a lot more into the supernatural. Um, so much so that the villain has made a deal with the devil and is kind of immortal in the sense of he's prolonging his own life by taking the souls of younger people. He has the ability to corrupt and talk, whisper in one's ear, and make them do horrible, horrible, terrible things, and act out their inner evil desires, which is something that should have been touched upon more, but is not. Um, Things that I do like about this movie. So the first shot in this movie is quite striking. A young Eric comes across a white horse, which I think is supposed to be his horse or his only sort of like friend he has as a child. And it's wrapped in barbed wire and is struggling, and the barbed wire is cutting into its major arteries. Now, I like, sounds a bit grim to say, but I like that scene because it's directly from the book. Eric has dreams of a white horse, which is his love and his innocence that's trapped in this barbed wire. So it was a nice callback to the book to see that. Oh, knock on my table. To see that. The problem again with that, as much as I like that scene, and the problem with that and the rest of the movie is, why didn't we go more into his connection with the horse a little bit? Because visually, it obviously means something. You've got to fill the gaps in your cell, because immediately when he's dealing with the horse, he cuts his hands on the barbed wire trying to save it. There's a quick shot of his mother in the trailer, ever face on drugs and alcohol. You never see the mother ever again. She doesn't get a line. That's the only flash you ever see of the mother, and they live in this crap trailer in the middle of nowhere. Um, and I feel that it didn't touch enough on that. Um, I like the cinematography style of this movie. It's, again, a lot of people are going to be like, it doesn't look anything like the original. Well, that's where I get a bit confused, because everyone keeps going how much they hate the idea of this film touching on the original and how it besmirches it. But it basically got ripped to shreds for not being anything like the original, so it can't win. I like the style of it. It's cleaner. It's very, very clean. There's no kind of dirt or grunge, and I think there was an idea of maybe classism and rich and poor, because there are some gorgeous buildings, almost French period. I don't know where this was filmed, and it never really states what city it's in. But there's almost like some of the buildings look like Parisian to me, especially the interiors. And when they're in the rich places, it's really, really quite striking and different. Shelley's apartment is very modern art. It's got a mixture of like minimalism and whatnot. Um, as I said, the cinematography is really good. Some of the shots are well thought out, and I like the contrast. I think there's supposed to be a contrast between rich and poor, because for as very little as we get to see it, Eric's got an industrial um, loft, which is a bit boring. It's nowhere near as good as the loft in the original. But I can't compare the two. I'm not comparing the two. But yeah, he's got like an industrial kind of like loft, and it's very grungy and grim. Uh, so there's a huge contrast between obviously how he's living and how he's lived his life to the rich of the city. Um, there is concepts that I like in the movie. So midway through this movie, they kind of flip the what we understand about the Crow mythology on its head. So basically, Eric dies, Shelley dies. Because Shelley has been involved with the devil whisperer fella, she's tainted, so she's going to hell. Eric goes into basically what I think is purgatory, which everyone really, really had a bad go at this purgatory place. I liked it. It was just a railway with crows everywhere, and I don't know why, but I liked it. I love the visual of it. And there's kind of a dude just hovering around there that's guiding Eric or giving him tips on what to do. Now, this dude is clearly based on the Skull Cowboy from the book. It doesn't look remotely like him, but he's influenced by it. He gets no backstory, no nothing. Not even a hint to what he is, who he is, why he is. Um, it's not necessary, because he's there just to push the plot forward a bit, but a little bit of context would have been nice. So yeah, so he sends Shelley's on her way to hell, and he says to Eric that, you've got a chance here. We'll send you back, set the wrong things right, and you know go do your thing, boy. Well, he goes up, figures out obviously that he can't be killed, which is an which is another thing I like about this. The level of gore and violence when it happens in this movie is insane. It is stomach churning levels of gore. Um, and probably one of my all-time favorite things about this movie is when Eric is damaged, shot, stabbed, which he has messed up a lot in this. It's not like the original or similar to other movies when people have healing powers. They get hurt and you see the wound heal up, and it's like, yeah, let's continue. I'm a badass. It hurts him. He feels all the pain. Skarsgård's brilliant in acting how frightened he is when he's getting stabbed or hurt. And the fighting is very scrappy and visceral, which I really liked that. It showed that Eric is just a guy that's thrown into this and he doesn't know what he's doing. And the first time he gets hurt, he's terrified. He's absolutely terrified. Um, so much so that he's stabbed multiple times and sliced across his stomach. And after he's basically had the fight, he runs to the mirror, looks in the mirror, and his intestine is hanging out of his stomach, and it is minging. And he pushes it back in, and then you see like good special effects actually of like his skin melding back together. Even that hurts him. The skin stitching itself seems to hurt him, and I love that aspect of it. Um, so yeah, he's got the power and everything. And what they've changed in this is he's told that his love needs to remain pure in order to keep his invulnerability. Well, he learns some things or sees some things about Shelley, and this wavers a little bit. And then he's shot with a shotgun, and he dies again because he loses his power, and he's sent back to the in-between place, or purgatory. And this is when I really kind of like, oh, I'm digging this now. He lost his chance. He's told, nah, you failed. You were given this power, you were given this opportunity, and you've just wasted it. So then, quite hastily, he goes, right, we'll trade my soul for hers. It's no longer a case of getting her back. It's like, I'll take her place. I will go to hell. She can come back. And a crow then, one of the crow spirits like goes inside him. And that's, if you've seen the trailer, that's when you see the stuff come out when he's in the in between. And it's almost like he's given up everything at this point, and the movie's tone changes quite significantly. So yeah, he goes back, and now he just whoops ass harder than ever. Um, and then the gore really, really ramps up at this point, and Eric's whole character, Skarsgård, plays it completely different. He's filled with hate and rage and emptiness, and all that matters now is vengeance. All that matters now is killing those that killed them. And whenever he's now injured from this point, and I didn't notice for a good bit because there's a huge like fight scene at the end in an opera house, and it's basically the set piece of the movie. It's just insanely choreographed with so much gore, but it's so well done, and they use the fact that he can't die really, really well in the fight, where like there's swords coming through him, he's grabbing people and piercing the sword that's already through him on them, and but it took me a couple of minutes to realize through this fight that his blood is now black. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, because it shows that he's no longer Eric's gone. It's now just whatever this entity is, the crow. It's just the power. He's given up everything for it. Um, and I love that aspect of it. And Skarsgård plays it really well. I think that everyone shitting on his look in the trailer was completely unwarranted, because it doesn't look that bad in the film. There's one screenshot in particular. It was a promotional shot, and it's a frame from the movie. And everyone just went mad on the fact that he had this like Post Malone mullet. He's clearly based on Post Malone and similar folk of that ilk, because they're the modern day rock stars. They are this generation's rock stars. That's the look. That's the edgy look. And I didn't hate it. Not at any point when I was actually watching it did I like, ugh. And the hair is not that bad at all. I did think in that one frame shot of the mullet, I was like, oof, that's an interesting choice to go for. But it's not that bad in it at all. It's never as, I just think that was a poor frame to use. But yeah, so I cannot praise. I know it sounds weird to praise it, but the effects in this for the gore are mental. The action scenes, when they do happen, are really good. They're I think there's only, to be honest with you, I think there's two action scenes and one violent scene at the end, and that's it. It's really not filled with action. I also love one thing that some folk don't like is, excuse me, one thing that folks don't like, and it's been a huge complaint of this movie, is the slow burn. It is a slow burn of a movie. The majority of this movie is Eric and Shelley meeting and finding out more about Shelley. Shelley's really the main kind of one that you learn stuff about, which I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, she's the whole first half of the movie is that it's this whirlwind romance. So it's a slow burn, and I thought from hearing people talking about that was going to be a bit of an iffy one for me, but it's not a boring burn. It kept my attention the whole way through the movie. I actually liked having a little bit more of a slow lean in. So, what didn't I like? I hated the ending. The ending really, really. If I was going to be putting points on it, which I'm not, it would knock off a good few points. You can tell very clearly that the ending of this movie is not the ending of this movie. It's a very, very quick re-edit and a reshoot to give some form of sequel bait, which I don't think this will get a sequel because this has been received so bad, which is a shame. But it was just, it went against everything that set up this movie. So I'll explain what I mean by that. This crow, this Eric Draven or character, the concept that I love about this movie is how much are you willing to give up for someone you love? How much are you willing to give up for what you believe the concept of love is? Because, and again, the film didn't go into this enough, and that's another criticism I have of it. You don't get enough about Eric's life. You don't get enough about how he feels. You don't get enough about what he's been through. He literally, you only see him at the rehab center. That's your introduction to him. And apparently he doesn't talk much. Apparently he doesn't interact with people. You don't find out why he's in the rehab center. You don't find out what he's been through. You just have to assume, right, the dude's covered in tattoos, looks a bit rough, and is in a rehab center. You have to be a bit small-minded and judge him. There is one point in this film, and it's such a quick flash of Eric did something very bad. And it's never brought up. The trailer you see at the start of the movie, where the horse and the mother was inside, it's on fire, and young Eric is standing outside it looking at it. So I'm thinking maybe I think maybe either his mother died in the trailer from a drug overdose and he set it on fire like a Viking funeral, or he killed his mother. One of the two. And that's a huge failing in this movie, is that Eric is the instrument of vengeance and we don't know enough about him. A huge misstep and a huge waste of an actor, because Skarsgård's a brilliant actor. I mean, I know he's now famous for Pennywise. Rightfully so. His Pennywise performance is phenomenal. But in other things that he's been in, his range is great. He is an absolutely great actor. And when he does get to shine in this movie, he plays Eric softly, sad, rage, anger, vengeance, darkness. He goes all over the place. But I feel the script and the movie and the editing doesn't reflect that. When he is in the rehab center, again, it's a weird edit, and I don't think there was enough time spent on Eric. Shelley, basically, Eric's obviously having a horrible time, and he's sitting in his cell, and he's made up a shank. Well, it's not actually a shank. It's a toothbrush with the head off it, and he's got a razor blade on it, and traditionally that's used. I don't think it was implying he was going to use that on a prisoner. I think he was deciding that night was going to be his night, and he was going to take his own life. Then he sees Shelley coming into the rehab center and doesn't do it. I don't think it's conveyed well enough in the film. I don't think it's shown to the audience well enough that what Eric's thinking. So And it would have made the relationship more if he genuinely feels that, oh wait, I feel a connection to her, then he didn't take his own life. Then he gives up everything to get vengeance, including trading places with Shelley. So, spoiler, he gets his vengeance, kills everyone. And I'm pretty sure that what's implied is that he's supposed to go to hell and she gets to go back up to the land of the living. That doesn't happen. He seems to, and I'm like, that's a huge contradiction because I am sure that it is said in that movie that he has to go to hell. The villain even taunts him by saying, "You've got no idea what's coming next. Like, you're gonna go to hell. You don't know what it's like down there." And Eric's like, "I don't care. I do," because his life has been so traumatic. He doesn't care anymore. At least by doing this and saving Shelley, it's the one thing he's done right. But none of this is conveyed in it. None of this is explained to us. None of this is shown enough. And Shelley gets to go back up to the land of the living and gets her life back. Eric's not allowed to go with her. But the final shot is him walking through purgatory. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 no. He doesn't get to wander through purgatory. He needs to go to hell. And I know I might be asking for a bit of a grim ending, but the whole thing of him giving up everything and then turning from just somebody that was back to vengeance and then giving him the black blood, the corruption, the extra power, he needs to be punished for that. Like, I feel like when you watch the opera scene and the way that he violently kills everyone, I wasn't necessarily rooting for him at that point. And I think that was the whole aspect of it was he's given up everything of who he is. And again, that flash of he's done something bad. There's almost a subplot at points about good and evil, which I feel again has been edited out. There is seeds of evil in everyone. And that ties in with the villain's power, where he apparently says that the whisper only brings out the seed of evil. So it's something that's within all of us. And I think it should be, or what they were going for was a balance of it. Eric gave up too much, but he did it for the right reasons. He gave it up for love. But yeah, he doesn't go to hell. He wanders purgatory, and Shelley magically wakes up where she died. And that's a huge issue that I have because after Eric dies, he comes back. His body's on the floor in the room that he died. That makes sense. Shelley's body's not. It's just her dress. So I had assumed that that the bad guys had taken her body and left his. I don't know. It's a bit shaky there. But what actually happens is Shelley gets to go back to the land of the living, and a paramedic who is the guy that's in purgatory has brought her back to life, and Eric's lying dead next to her. So it's almost as if it really is jarring on your brain because it almost looks like it's the entire movie didn't happen, and that Eric just died next to Shelley. I hate it. I hate it. It's really jarring to watch it, and it didn't make any sense at all. That really pulled a lot of the movie out for me. The other bit I don't like is the fact that they get to come back to life. I think you would have simplified your script, simplified the story if it was as simple as Shelley goes to hell or is going to hell. Eric has to get her soul back up to heaven or paradise, whatever you believe in. By having the whole plot thing of like they were going to come back to life and get to continue their life, no, that shouldn't have been a part of it because there needs to be a level of tragedy and loss to this to anchor it. Eric's not going to get his life back. Shelley's not going to get her life back. Therefore, what Eric does to the villains is somewhat justified. But that ending completely, yeah, it really left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. The villains are absolutely rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. There's no story to them at all. The main villain is played by an older gentleman. He's a villain in a lot of things. Apparently, he was always cast to be the villain, even when it was in development hell. I think it was 2015, 2016 version of this movie. He was cast as a villain then, but they couldn't get him because his schedule was too busy. And then 2024 or 2023, 2022, whenever this was filmed, they managed to get him. So he was always considered to be the main villain. He's not a bad actor, but he's very one note. Very one note. Not bar having the devil power thing. He's not very interesting. All the other ones that die in the movie have no personality at all. There's nothing interesting about any of the villains. You don't know anything about them. You don't get an inclination. There's nothing hinted about them. They are just cardboard cutouts to be sliced up. Huge miss. And I know I said not to compare the two Crow movies, but any revenge movie where it's just some dude picking off some dude or some girl picking off folk that have done them wrong, the villains need to have some sort of personality or something that makes them individuals. So it's satisfying when they meet their end. These folk are just bad. The only one that's the only villain in it that I find that I was really, really happy when they met their end was the fella that actually kills Shelley, because they die by suffocation with bags over their heads, which was actually more grim than I thought. You see it in the trailer and you think, ugh, maybe more happens, but when it's in the film, it's you see them suffocate for quite a while. It's not nice. Um, but this guy, he never gets any lines, and he's holding Shelley, he's choking her, and he's resting his head on top of hers, and she's like gasping for air, and this guy's just dead staring Eric in the eyes as he's doing it, and then kisses Shelley on the head and is like, shh. And that's the only villain in this entire movie that makes you go, right, I want him dead, because that was just cold and evil. You never see this guy again until two other scenes. He doesn't say anything, he doesn't do anything. Yeah, it just absolutely rubbish villain. Even to the point where I feel there was more for him, because when he's about to meet his end in the action scene at the end, he takes a coward's way and tries to kill himself. He knows he's going to die, and he's like, oh, no, I'm not letting him do it. And Eric stops him, and I'm kind of like, there must have been more to this guy. You must have cut something. But yeah, the villains are so boring, which is a shame, because again, I'm comparing it, I know, but the villains in the original Crow were so good. They were so memorable, and they didn't have a lot of screen time other than when they were dying, but they at least got screen time to establish that they were bad. In this one, no, just bad villains. Um, I had touched on it briefly before. Should have been more of Eric. There's barely nothing to Eric, and that's an absolute waste of Skarsgård. Such a waste, because I want more. I want to know more about his life. I want to know more about why he is the way he is, and we just never got it. I felt sympathy. Like, Skarsgård's such a good actor in the scenes where, like, he's got. I know everyone knows that he's got the weird Pennywise eyes thing going on, but he's got a sadness to his eyes and a softness to him. And then when he decides to put the makeup on, which is tattoo ink in this, by the way, I quite like that. Puts it onto a slightly remixed version of an Enya song. I dug that scene. I loved that scene. I really, really got into that. It was a totally different gear up, with a nod to the original, because he smashes a mirror. Um, and I just feel it's such a waste of his talents. I wanted more of him. I really did. A lot of folk are crapping on the actress that played Shelley. I believe she's an artist, a musician. I'm not aware of her. Formerly known as Twigs, or FKA Twigs. I didn't think she was bad in this at all. I didn't find her to be written well, but I didn't hate her. I didn't think she was too bad at what she did. Um, the other thing that I didn't like about the movie was, so when he does the gear up, it's to an Enya song. And the music overall in this movie is not my taste of music. There's some songs on it that I like, that I know, but it's a bit. There's a lot of modern music to it, but it's strange choices. It's a bit incoherent. I like the score. I really like the score. It's got deep cellos in it, and they growl. I remember that. That stayed with me. But we go from the very chill gear up of Enya. It's got a slight sadness to it, and a slight darkness to it. Then we go into the next scene, which is the big gore scene, and he cuts everyone up at the opera house. And it's all done over an opera song. And I knew it was coming because when he's walking to the steps, you see the opera performance happening. And I'm like, don't do the whole scene with that opera music playing over it, please, because it's such a played out trope. That really did. I would have rathered some score music. I would have rathered some intense action music, some tension, because that whole fight scene is amazing. The special effects, the choreography, the idea of taking somebody that's unstoppable and then adding the realism of the blood and getting messed up and it's just absolute carnage. And for some reason, that opera song over the top of it does my head in. It's overdone, and I think it was a bit of a misstep on that. But the scene itself is still absolutely phenomenal. So I've done actually more on what I didn't like than what I did like, but overall, I'm going to be in the minority here. I liked it. I genuinely liked it. I think is it an amazingly great movie? No, absolutely not. But I love that it's Crow. I love that it was more Crow. I feel that there's a lot of missteps in this. The editing is all over the place. The pacing is all over the place. But the fact that we have a Crow movie, I'm happy about that. I don't think it tarnishes the memory of the original because I don't understand why people can't separate what's been and what is. It's not like this movie replaces the original. It's not like this movie replaces any of the books. That's all still there. This is its own thing, and I think the populism and the fandom have really. I respect the passion because I understand the connection with Brandon Lee, but look at like what if when Heath Ledger died as the Joker, right? What if we had no more Batman? What if everyone just Batman just stopped? You know, like having. I know a lot of people didn't like Jared Leto's Joker, and I was one of them. I'm not a huge fan of Jared Leto's Joker, but it didn't detract. Like I haven't forgotten Heath Ledger's portrayal. I haven't forgotten Jack Nicholson's portrayal. They're still there. I still go and enjoy them. I still have access to them. It's not like when a new movie comes out, it replaces the old one. I did like it. And seeing the action scenes and the ideas of it, it feels more like a proof of concept. I'm genuinely disappointed because this movie's bombed so bad and unwarranted bombing because it's not that bad a movie on its own. It's okay. It's a pretty entertaining movie about revenge with supernatural elements. It's got a lot of missteps. It doesn't have enough soul and heart to it, and you wasted Skarsgård. But the fact that we got a Crow movie, the fact that there is more media of it, I think we should have been more grateful. Bearing in mind that this movie as well was in development hell since like 2008. There has been so many people connected that was going to lead this movie. I remember at one point Mark Wahlberg was cast as Eric Draven. Then it was Bradley Cooper. Then it was Luke Evans. And each time, this got really close to starting production every time, and it just stalled. There was a script for a long, long time written by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. He's written a lot of scripts, but his script was hovering about for a long while. I don't even think that was. I don't think any of that survived. Luke Evans was also about to start, and he quit because he lost his bottle and felt like, oh wait a minute, the whole comparison to Brandon Lee, I'm not gonna do it justice. Then the closest out of all was can't get my date right here. Is it 2017? 2018? 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 14 days from starting production, and the film stalled. And the leading man at that point was Jason Momoa. And there was even a photo of him in crow makeup. It was a concept photo or a test photo, and it looked all right. I thought he looked quite badass. It was the classic crow paint. And everybody, if I remember, everybody that saw the Jason Momoa picture was like, "Oh wow, looks really good! I can't wait to see it," because Jason Momoa seems quite likable as an actor. But it was the same crow makeup, so I don't understand how that was okay, and yet this one keeps getting punished for doing something different, but being connected to the original in any way. It couldn't win. I loved the concept, the script idea of what was going to be Jason Momoa's Crow movie was that Eric was a cop, and corrupt crime syndicate kill his entire family. It's different. Um, I would have preferred something different on the vengeance line. You didn't, as I said at the start of this, you didn't need to do Eric and Shelley. Skarsgård could have been any character. FK Twigs could have been any character. They didn't need to be Eric and Shelley. That did not need to have that. Um, Now, on a personal note, as I said, I'm a bit disappointed that we're not going to probably get another Crow movie. Um, I would really, really like another one because there is potential for different stories, and you can do these revenge movies in so many different ways, especially if you're going to be adding supernatural elements. I feel that this movie strangely didn't lean into the comic book feel enough. Even that it had devils and heaven and hell, it didn't have enough leaning into it. There's a whole there's a whole world you could crack open there, and it doesn't have to be based on the book or the rules that the book set up. The book was its own self-contained thing about Eric coming back and getting vengeance, but there's a world that you could have a franchises out of, and it's a waste that it's not capitalized on. The type of Crow movie that I've always wanted, I want a female Crow. I really, really want to see a woman play that role because there are stereotypes in this movie that I was a bit bored of. Like, yeah, okay, another male Crow, that's fine. I was happy to see Skarsgård. I love his portrayal, nothing against him. But a rich, older, white male villain, boring. All the villains, male. One female villain that was in it and she did nothing. And she honestly was just crossfire fodder. Do something different. A female Crow that loses her child. Don't do the oh I've lost my husband or I lost my partner again. The whole concept of a mother losing her child, wow, that's a revenge movie right there. I'm 100% behind because I'm a parent myself. The sense of injustice and wrong and pain and anguish. Um, there's a movie that did that unbelievably well. I cried to it. I'm not even ashamed to admit I cried to this movie multiple times and I really shouldn't have. It's what was it called? I'm gonna have to put a graphic up here to remember what it was, but Kevin Bacon was in it, and it's a revenge movie, and his son dies in it, and he goes on this revenge trip, and it's so painful. The music in it by Charlie Clouser is amazingly tears your soul at you. It's that is a revenge movie done well because again, it was a concept of how much are you willing to sacrifice as a person to get the vengeance? How much is it worth to sacrifice it and what's left of you at the end of it? And this movie tried that. There are shades of that in there, especially with the bargain that Eric makes midway through the movie to get more power. And I feel if we had a female Crow that loses a child, they tried to do that in the second Crow, where it was a father that loses his child, but you know, it wasn't a great movie at all. So to wrap this up, because it's been a very rambling video, because I was caught off guard and I really wanted to talk about it, so I didn't really plan it out very well. So I apologize for the mishmashy. But I didn't hate it. I loved it and what it tried to be. I'm disappointed because it's wasted opportunity, but it's a great proof of concept. The thing it makes me most upset is that we're probably not going to get more. We're not going to get more from this idea. We're not going to get more from the world. My brain's gone dead. Hi, quick edit here. So this is me having an executive function issue, and I didn't want to edit it out because I just want to show what happens for me with my autism when my brain suddenly decides to stop working. Yeah. And what we should be taking away from this as a massive positive, and I don't understand all these people, like the amount of hate the movie's got genuinely upsets me. You can be a fan of the original, you can love the original, but there's no reason to shit on this just because it exists. It doesn't take away from the original. If anything, it puts more eyes on the thing that you like. And everybody's entitled to have their own passions and their own loves. But I think having different versions of things is good. Life would be very boring otherwise if we would just have the same things regurgitated out. But I think these people haven't seen The Crow Wicked Prayer. And that's the main takeaway from this. We got that movie, we got this one after The Crow Wicked Prayer. The Crow Wicked Prayer is a bad movie. It's cheap, it's crap, it is shit top to bottom, and it should be buried and burned. This is actually Oscar-worthy art compared to The Crow Wicked Prayer. That was the last Crow movie we got, was Wicked Prayer. And that was like early 2000s to mid 2000s. This gestated in development hell for about 15 years. And we still got something that's serviceable from it. So I'm counting my lucky stars that I got that, because it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And I just think it's tragic that it's not going to get any love. I mean, it's like I think it's at like 4.5 on Internet Movie Database, which is ridiculous. It's nowhere near that bad. But yeah, so that's been my ideas and my feelings on it. I've rambled a lot. It's been a bit of a messy video, but it did catch me off guard. But yeah, so finishing up, let's do the socials. You can contact me on official Let's Talk About Meh at gmail.com. I'm on Instagram on Let's Talk About Meh1. I'm on Spotify now, if you just want to listen to my dulcet tones, but the video's on there too. If you could like, subscribe, share, pop some comments underneath, tell me how wrong I am about this movie, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you just maybe saw some potential in it. Yeah, thanks again, and see you next time. Peace.